real quick, this is my alt channel, and my main channel is in danger every day of getting banned as a result of talking with these amazing people very candidly. So please do me a favor and subscribe down below. Helps me out a lot. Get the hell on it, doggone it. With that, we're also going to talk about CAMELCAST updating their mask policy from...
Oh man, that was fun.
Yeah, from required to recommended. So all the ugly 400-pound trans women are pissed off because they have to show their face. And no one wants to see that shit.
Well, they don't have to. They can still choose to wear a mask. That's the whole thing. But no, the fallout in those comments. Someone tagged me in it, and I immediately, it's like, I know what I could do. Something funny. Share it with everyone.
Who gives a damn?
The people. No, it's just, man. The absolute number that 2020 and beyond did on people's brains should be studied.
Yeah.
I mean, on a more serious level than just us talking about it online. Maybe someday there will be some like DOI papers on it, but it is absolutely insane. There's studies now of a phenomenon called the Fogen effect, FOEGEN effect, which suggests that by deep inhalation of virus particles that are introduced by mask wearing, it actually significantly contributes to a higher mortality rate. But of course, if you show that to people, then it's real. It's real stuff. But people, in my mind, what mask wearing is an outward way to signify that you are quote unquote healthy for people who are not willing to put in the work otherwise. So that's their one, way to virtue signal quote unquote health.
Right. Yeah. It was a very interesting time to where people got the opportunity, especially people that don't do anything or have any influence, got the opportunity to, from a moral standpoint, wish death on other people and wish higher taxes on people and wish people imprisoned and wish all these things to happen to prove that they were morally superior.
They shouldn't be able to get medical treatment, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. I remember when people were like, yeah, if in New York, Bill de Blasio put forth that 800 line to snitch on your neighbors if they're not vaccinated or wearing masks.
You've been reading my Twitter. You've been reading my Twitter feed.
Yeah, it's wild to me that all these people just conveniently want everybody to forget all this shit happened.
Yeah, well, some of us were busy archiving that entire time and have a trove of it. So I personally, again, it's the reason why I refuse to die, because I have many, many more years ahead of me of just being perfectly petty over these things. And if I died, that would kind of fall short of the goals. So
yeah, I'll never forget it.
They flooded that hotline with pictures of dicks and Hitler, and it was just lovely. It was a beautiful time. Everyone came together.
Thank God for that. Yeah, I know. I remember the current administration pushing OSHA because they couldn't constitutionally push a mandate on people. So they tried to get OSHA to mandate everybody in the U.S. to get vaccinated if they work in the workforce. And of course that didn't go through because the thing that's annoying the most about it is,
it had to be challenged in court first, which is why a lot of people who, it's all well and good to say, oh yeah, you should risk everything to say no to this. And I understand that, at the end of the day, that's the optimal thing to do for advancing the overall agenda of medical freedom, yada, yada, yada. But there are people who have, 3-4 young children at home, a wife who doesn't work, and they're the sole breadwinner. And people like that, it really felt like they were over a barrel. And a lot of people went with, unfortunately, in some regard, went with the Johnson & Johnson because they're like, okay, well, it's a one and done. But the non-replicating adenovirus vaccines are actually the ones that have been the culprit of some of the most significant reactions. So it's that we know of so far. Unfortunately, we don't know the half-life of the gene expression for the mRNA vaccines, and that will continue to play out for who knows how long. But as far as the significant, the deep, the thrombosis and clots and heart episodes, a lot of those came from Johnson & Johnson or AstraZeneca, or the ones that people thought were, okay, well, if I've got to do it, I'll do this one. You have 30-year-olds dropping dead of horrible deaths. So I won't forget it. I won't forgive it either. So.
Oh, I completely agree with you.
But plenty of people are like, okay, well, people are changing their minds. We should applaud that. You can.
Yeah.
I won't be joining. Thank you.
You're more than welcome to change your mind, but all it proves is that if anything similar to that happens again, you're going to be first in line to kill your neighbors over it.
As far as individuals go, I do have a little bit more like people who are realizing the depth of the deception. I guess maybe because I like when I went to college, I got super indoctrinated. I was like full on lefty, yada 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 for a while, and so I do 100% have more empathy for people who are not in media and or who don't have like a platform as their job. But if your job is to disseminate news and or to discuss news and you didn't do your due diligence, then like I have no sympathy for you, and I hope everything bad in the world happens to you, to be quite honest.
It
I don't
reminds me
want
of
you to be happy in your life. You don't deserve it.
Chris Cuomo is like coming out like now on podcasts being like, there was a shadow thing in the works, and I'm like, yeah, everybody said that 4 years ago, and you were on CNN screaming that not getting the vaccine was racist. Like, what the fuck?
That it was racist, and he had his wife. His wife's name is Christina.
Yeah.
First of all, so Chris and Christina Cuomo is already ridiculous in and of itself. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like you shouldn't you shouldn't marry someone that has the same name as you. That's weird. So Chris and Christina Cuomo detailed this whole little blog on, it's still on her website. Is called Purist or The Purist. It's like a Gwyneth Paltrow Goop wannabe. She detailed out, if you Google the Chris Cuomo coronavirus protocol part 1 and 2, you'll see it. She talked about how they use potentized quinine and red light ultraviolet therapy to help with his perceived illness. I'm honestly not even convinced that he ever even had it. I think he wanted to do his bunker in the Hamptons kind of charade. But like they use potentized quinine to treat it. He now says that he takes ivermectin as a prophylaxis, but realistically, he was on CNN saying that if you took anything as prophylaxis that wasn't, FDA or CDC recommended, that you were again a danger to democracy or whatever. It's absurd.
Do you remember?
I remember everything.
I know. I noticed the strangest patterns when this was happening.
That's illegal, by the way.
Yeah. And I remember seeing there were so many people verbatim saying the same exact things, but like from a personal experience, like
there are NGOs that do that. There's one called Narrative Initiative, and that's essentially what they do. They want to disseminate the same phrases and talking points in a slightly different angle depending on where you spread that information. You have Narrative Initiative, you have Beautiful Trouble, you have Narrative. There's quite a few, and I have a lot of them. I've talked about them on my show. I don't remember them off top, but I know that those two are ones. Beautiful Trouble and Narrative Initiative. That's literally what they do. Their messaging is whenever everyone comes out saying the same thing, or even like the same thing in slightly different fonts all at once, it came from a think tank.
Yeah,
it came from like one of like the big five.
And it's weird because I remember individuals of mutuals of people I know saying the same shit. I remember this is the biggest one I remember. I remember when I saw it online first. I saw it on Twitter or whatever. And then like two of my individual like friends that I kind of know mutually or closer with when I was younger, like said the same shit like in a DM to me, like verbatim. And it was like almost this weird like I was in a simulation. They said this, and I noticed it online first. They said I just got over COVID, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
Oh, I saw plenty of people saying that. Yeah.
And no, I had a friend, and I saw that all over online, and I was like, that's okay, that's weird, whatever. And then one of my friends, like out of nowhere, messaged me and was like, man, COVID's is no shit. Like it's brutal. I've been sick for 2 weeks and I'm finally getting better. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And they were like, yeah, dude, like you need to get vaccinated for sure. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get it. Because everybody was yelling at me. And they literally said, bro, like seriously consider it. I wouldn't have wished this on my worst enemy. And I'm like, why is everyone saying the same fucking line? It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And this is a real person. This wasn't like a bot. And I was like, why are they saying the same?
Wasn't it though?
No. And there was multiple things that were coming out. There was another one of my favorites was, I'm a nurse at a hospital, and we had a guy come in, and he was on it being put on a ventilator, and he was screaming, "Please give me the vaccine!" And I said,
with his last breath, yes, all he wanted.
Just give me the.
If only I had taken the vaccine. Yes.
I was like, what? And then the other one was,
there was a story like that came out of Las Vegas. I remember this one very specifically. The man never, he did not exist. That whole story was fabricated.
Yeah.
I did the legwork on that. It was like in late 2021. It was a man in Las Vegas. They said his wife and his kids were all there, and he was just as he was dying, he was just begging for the vaccine. He didn't actually even ever exist.
Yeah. No,
and they ended up trying to pull the story after I proved that he wasn't real. And
I don't think any of these people ever existed that were saying, and one of the weirdest things about the entire, because remember, this was I mean, better than anybody else. It was a very strange time directly in the middle of 2020. I remember everybody complaining. People were complaining on Facebook in my local area about how hospitals are completely overrun and destroyed. And I went and I drove. I was just driving past this place called Drake's. It's a really good place that has really good fried chicken.
I know Drake's.
Yeah. Oh, you fucking know.
I live here, dude.
We both live here. Yeah. I forget. Dude, Drake's is great. Anyway, I was leaving Drake's, and there's that hospital right there on fucking Drake or Jordan, wherever the hell it is.
Yep.
And I drove and I went into the parking lot, and that sumbitch was completely empty. And this was at the height of COVID. And there was articles talking about that hospital being overrun. And then there was this lady that her entire social media was her going to different hospitals and showing that they're completely empty. And then she just got banned on everything.
Well, yeah, of course. No, what they did, how they could claim that was that they actually ended up making, in most areas, they made about half of the beds in the hospital not available at all. And then they apportioned another quarter of them for COVID only beds. And so most hospitals had about a quarter of their hospital actually functional. And the other were COVID beds, which were oftentimes not being used. And so they could say that they were overrun and overfull because the ones that they actually had available, which was still a quarter of their operational capacity, were not available. That's how they got away with that.
Yeah, it was the weirdest shit. And I mean, we could talk about this for fucking hours, and how somebody one of my popular clips from back in the day is somebody said that I was killing their grandma by going out in public.
Rip.
And I was like, well, fuck your grandma. And they were like, what? How could you? You've changed.
The average age of death of people who died of COVID is 6 years over the average life expectancy age. Most everyone who died with COVID died with 3+ comorbidities. I think maybe 4, but I think it was at least at minimum 3. And obviously you don't want to be callous to death, but when you have people who, there was a guy, I believe it was Florida, where he got smeared down the highway in a motorcycle accident, and they marked him as COVID. It's okay. And magically George Floyd was the only person who had COVID when he died who wasn't marked as a COVID death, and fentanyl and other things.
Fentanyl's real though.
I know, but I'm saying he had fentanyl in his system and technically COVID, and neither one of those were considered factors.
Yeah, it's weird. And it all leads us up to modern day in 2024, and how there are still people out there for some reason clinging on the virtue signaling.
This is so good.
They are clinging onto this virtue signal, wear a mask or you're a murderer. And there's a anime con called FanimeCon. And this con was requiring people to wear a mask if you attended. Due to strong feedback from our attendees, staff, and local health partners, some events may require mandatory masking due to spacing issues and bigger crowds. But their masking policy was changed from required to strongly recommended, meaning they removed their mask requirement. And every single person in this reply section is mentally ill. Every one of them's how just completely irreprehensible behavior. And of course I commented and I said, all the ugly people who rely on masks to hide their face and pretend to be virtuous are really angry at this change, because that's what it is. It's the fat, ugly people with the acne and you know what I'm saying?
It's a way of outwardly virtue signaling, quote unquote, health to people who are otherwise, typically speaking, painting with a broad brush here, and I do mean broad, are otherwise not very healthy. So again, it's a very easy way.
That was the most frustrating thing about all this. Can I do this? Nope. That was the most frustrating thing about
what are you trying to do? You can take me off for a second if you need to.
No, it's good. The most, I'll bring it back up in a second, but the most frustrating thing in all this was the 380-pound blue-haired fat women that were yelling about you don't care about people's health, and this is you don't care about your personal health. Did you notice this, Lauren? This is actually something
I
that
noticed plenty of things.
This is something I noticed that no one really talked about. I remember when I was 22, 23 years old, every single fast food joint had to offer healthier options and put their calorie counts on their menu because the fats wanted to be healthy and we wanted to have better lifestyles. As soon as COVID hit, every single fast food joint completely removed all their healthy and grilled chicken options due to restrictions and COVID restrictions, and they never brought them back. And suddenly all these people that cared about personal health 5 years ago, all they care about is your mask, your vaccines, and eating pizza until they fucking explode. What happened? They stopped caring about their actual health and started caring only about other people's health.
Well, it's a lot easier to police other people's behavior rather than doing the work on your own. So, you know,
yeah. They won't. It's just wanting control. They just wanted control.